Hi everyone, welcome to Workstation Wednesday. My name is Tracy King and I am the blogger who blogs at mrskingrocks.blogspot.com. You can also find my materials on Teachers Pay Teachers and on my personal website, thebulletinboardlady.com. While we are waiting for a few people to join us, thought I would tell you about my other social media escapades. You can find me on Twitter and Instagram. On Twitter, I'm Tracy King, and on Instagram, I'm the Bulletin Board Lady. I share a lot of my classroom ideas on all of those places. Sometimes on Instagram, I show a lot of food porn, but I'm trying to hold back on that just a little bit. Tonight, I'm going to talk to you and share with you one of my lessons for 16th notes, and then show you how I take that lesson and use it as kind of a springboard to setting up a rhythm workstation. So the first part of this is to actually give you a tiny little lesson in beatboxing. I know. You're thinking, oh my gosh, what does a middle-aged white woman know about beatboxing? I know enough, I'll tell you what, and I'm going to teach you the tiny little bit that I know. And I'm sorry I've got all of this light coming in from the back. Looks almost angelic, doesn't it? Anyway, so tonight I'm going to show you the basics of beatboxing. Now, why I'm doing that is because I'm going to read a story to you and you are going to be my rhythm accompaniment. And we're just going to use our bodies to make that happen. So if you don't know, beatboxing is when you use different sounds that you can make with your mouth and body percussion to create like a drum sound. So a lot of like that. Okay, so the easiest way to beatbox, according to Mrs. King, is to say boots and cats. Okay, and you have to do this with me. If you're sitting at home and you're watching this, or if you're watching this, at your son's soccer practice or whatever, you have to do this, because if you don't do it with me, it totally won't make sense. I promise. Okay, so you're going to say boots and cats and boots and cats. Okay, come on, say it with me. Boots and cats and boots and cats and boots and cats. And then mix it up and get a little crazy and go cats and boots and cats and boots. And you can do whatever you want. Okay, you got that? Boots and cats. So like boots on your feet, cats like, okay, that's all you're going to say. Now I want you to say it, but I want you to leave out any pitch that you might have in your voice and just really try to only say the consonants. Okay? Are you doing that? For those of you that jumped in, I'm giving a little baby lesson on beatboxing and you're going to want to do this. Okay. So instead of saying boots and cats and boots and cats, you're going to just focus on those consonants, just exploding those consonants. Okay? And you're going to do boots and cats, boots and and cats and cats and cats, boots, cats, boots, cats. Okay, so by this time, when I do this, you were doing it, weren't you? I know you were. By this time, when I'm giving the class a lesson in beatboxing, some awesome kid says, Mrs. King, do you just want me to do this? I'm sure he means it to flatter me. But anyway, so sometimes then we'll let kids in the class take a turn and they can show me what they can do. Man, these kids are wicked awesome at this. So then to get, the whole class involved, they'll say, if you can do that, here's the beat that we're going to use. And everybody's going to boots and cats and cats and cats. And so we'll get the whole class going. And it's really fun if you put your hand over your mouth because, I don't know, I think that makes you look cooler. I'm sure it changes the sound a little bit, but it totally makes me look cooler. Watch. Right? Wasn't that cooler? Okay, so we got the beatbox going, and then I'll say that you're going to be the rhythmic accompaniment to the book I'm going to read, which is Possum Come Knockin'. And this is by Nancy Van Lawn, and it's one of my favorites. This does take a little teensy bit of practice. And in it are lots of word combinations that work out so great with 16 note patterns and with 8/16 combinations. So I'm going to go through this book in just a minute, and if you don't want to give your kids a crash course lesson in beatboxing, or maybe if you're just like, holy smokes, Tracy, I need something a little bit easier. Good, because since you all aren't here with me to beatbox, and I just sent my daughter out to grandma's house so that she wouldn't interrupt me while I did this, then I'm going to show you an app called Incredibox, and I bet you probably have heard of that before. If you go to Incredibox.com on your PC, you can try out some of the voicings for free. You can also download the app, which gives you all of the voicings for 99 cents, and it is so worth it. So let me turn this around just a little bit, and I'm going to show you the app. Don't be afraid of the half-naked men in the app. It's not incredibly inappropriate. It's just all great. So what you do to use Incredibox is you drag one of these colored icons down here. Is it just me, or is that a little blurry? Hang on, let me wipe you off. Oh, not better. Okay, so we're going to drag one of these up. Can you hear what he's doing? All right, and then you can drag other ones up. They load. My connection's a little slow tonight. And each of the icons have something different to add. If you want to get rid of that, you just kind of swipe him down. You can add other components. You can fill the whole thing up if you like. Once they load here at the bottom, they're each adding a different loop. And so you're able to layer them. And oh my goodness gracious, the kids just love this. This is really one of my favorite websites and apps to use with the kiddos, and it really lets them do some amazing things. So I've already got this set up for the track that I'm going to use to read this book, but hello. So I'm going to go ahead, and that's what the sound is that you're going to hear. Are you still here? Oh, are you still here? Oh my gosh, I hit the wrong button. I'm always hitting the wrong button. Okay, so I'm going to let that track play in the background, and I am going to read you this book, or most of this book, Possum Come a Knockin'. Before you do this in class, you will definitely want to practice, because it's kind of got a lot of words, and you'll definitely not want to just read it cold. Okay, so let me start the track. And I'm going to try and show you the pictures as best as I can and still be able to read it. Here it goes. Possum come a knocking at the door, at the door. Possum come a knocking at the door. Granny was a sittin' and a rockin' and a knittin' when a possum come a knocking at the door. Ma was busy cooking in the kitchen making taters when a possum come a knocking at the door. Pa was busy fixing and a banging and a pounding when a possum come a knocking at the door. Pappy was a whittling making play toys for the baby when a possum come a knocking at the door. Sis was tossing baby while Pappy was a whittling when a possum come a knocking at the door. Brother was untangling all the twiny line for fishing while Sis was tossing baby and Pappy was a whittling. Pa was busy fixing and Ma was busy cooking and Granny was a knitting when a possum come a knocking at the door. Coondog was a twitching and a scratching in the corner when a possum come a knocking at the door. Tomcat started sniffling and a spitting and a hissing when a possum come a knocking at the door. What's that? Sis said. Don't know, brother said. What's that? Paul said. Don't know, Granny said. But that cat, she said. That cat oughter go. Then dog started stiffing and a pawing and a growling, while the cat tail a twitching was a hissing and a howling, making Granny stop a knitting and Poppy stop a whittling, and baby started fussing, sis and brother started cussing, 'cause a little old possum was a knocking at the door. And then we're going to skip. No one can ever see the possum. We're going to skip a few pages to the end. No possum, Pappy said. No possum, Paul said. No possum, Granny said. No possum, Ma said. Then we all started doing like before. Granny was a-sittin' while Pappy was a-whittling. Ma was a-cooking and Pa was a-fixin'. Brother was untangling while Sis was tossing baby. Coon Dog was a-scratching while Tomcat was a-licking. And I was just a-looking and a-looking out the window when I saw what I saw scoot up the old oak tree. A possum was a-scooting and a-scrambling and a-dangling. That possum was a-knocking, made a fool out of me. And that is mostly a possum coming knocking. So the kids love to get into that, and they're already at the part where a possum coming knocking at the door, even the big kids. So they really, really get into that, whether they're beatboxing or we're using Incredibox on the smart board. This is awesome. Oh, and I see that Katie bought a stuffed possum. Oh my gosh, I'm gonna need a stuffed possum for this book because I use it almost every year. So now that the kids are familiar with the story, and we might go back at some of the funny parts, and with some groups, we go back and say, oh, did you hear that sis and brother were cussing? That doesn't meet one of our expectations at school, does it, boys and girls? So we don't want to do that or whatever. So after we've read that and they've had fun, sometimes that's where the lesson will stop for the day. I'll just read the book and we'll just go through it and have a good time. And then the next time that they come, I'll continue on with the lesson where we pull some phrases out of the book. And I've already pulled them out ahead of time because I know what I'm going to work on. So for the lesson that I'm sharing with you now, we're just working on 16th notes in a combination of 4. So we're not doing 8th, 16th combinations, of which there are a lot in this book, but this is kind of just where I'm starting for this. You could go whatever way you wanted. So then the kids come in and I give them one of these snazzy little rhythm blocks. These are Rhythmic dictation blocks from Kelly Parrish. She sells them on Etsy. Her store is named Rhythmically Yours, and I've got a link to her store and to these awesome rhythm dictation blocks up in the description up there. So if you go to where that says links for some of the resources mentioned, this is one of those links. So these rhythm blocks have a quarter rest, put it up here so you can see it better, double 8th notes, 16th notes, rest, quarter note, I forgot that one. So they're really good for using to dictate songs like Chicken on a Fence Post. That's one that I'm doing right now with some of my classes, and these are really, really good to say, okay, I'm going to clap a rhythm, clap it back to me, and then use your blocks to show me what that sounds like. So I might say, possum come a knocking at the door. And the class would echo back, possum come a knocking at the door. And they're like, all right, let's put that in your hands. You're going to clap the syllables, or you're going to clap the way the words go. And so they would clap, possum come a knocking at the door. And I'd be like, oh, boys and girls, now listen, I feel that in 4, but I think we only clapped 3 beats. Let's do it one more time. I think maybe we're missing something. And so the next time we'll go through, possum come a knocking at the door. And they're like, oh, Mrs. King, there's nothing. Let's put a rest at the end. I'm like, okay, well, you gave that one away. We know the end of this phrase is a quarter note. So I'm going to try and do this backwards too. May the Lord have mercy on my soul. So they would do possum come a knocking. So they would turn their blocks, right, like that. Possum come a knocking at the, that sounds like this. And a rest at the end. I guess I did that exactly backwards. I should probably try to do it backwards for you. But anyway, so then we would clap through and check our answers. Ticky, 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 ta, shh. Possum coming, knocking at the door. Shh. I know, but if I turn it over, it's not. I know, I need to start and do it this way, don't I? All right, well, you get the gist. I'm sorry, I'm doing it backwards. I'm going to show you the worksheet backwards in just a minute, too. So hang on. So then we might do, oh, that one was really good. Now I'm going to say another one for you. So I would do, I was just a-sitting and a-looking out the window. I was just a-sitting and a-looking out the window. I was just a-sitting and a-looking out the window. And so then they would figure out that that was going to be, I can do this. I can totally do this backwards. Yeah. There we go. So then they would go through, I was just a-sitting and a-looking out the window. This is actually window instead of window, but we're not talking about those 16th, 8th combos yet. So if they had TT on the end, I would count that as right. Or something even a little bit easier. Hush, Pa said, now hush, Ma said. And that would be a simple T-T-T-T-T-ta. And they could use these blocks to dictate that as well. So we're taking pieces from the book and we're finding patterns. Now, if you choose to do the 16th and 8th note combos, there are tons of phrases in there that work for that. But these dictation blocks don't come in the 16th and 8th combos. She may have some. You should look in her story because she's like a genius. But right now, the ones that I have don't have that. So I stick to the patterns that I have. So then we go to another whole group activity. I swear I'm getting to the workstation part. I promise, I promise. So then we go to another whole group activity and I pass out these little these pages full of dot stickers. I think that you use them for like yard sales if you're going to put like the prices on them, if you're going to color code stuff or whatever. These are in kind of neon colors, but they come in like red and blue and green and all sorts of packs. The only colors that you really don't want are white because, well, they don't show up very good. And I got mine. You see, I have a pack here. These came from Dollar General because that was the place that had them in my town, and they are called that, color coding labels. Okay, so you have a whole bunch of those, and yes, I do buy them, and I pass sheets out to every student that comes in, and then I give them a worksheet. Let me find a worksheet. A worksheet that looks like this. This goes back to the fabulous Mighty Musical Grid by Martha Stanley. There are going to be 4 blocks here, and I'm going to tell students that I want them to take their sticker sheet, which is right here, and I want them to put 1, 2, or 4 dots in each box. And because I'm cheap and I'm buying for like a bajillion kids, I tell them they can only use what they have on their sheet unless a neighbor of theirs is willing to give them some of theirs. So they have to use only what's here. So they can't do like 8 blocks of 16th notes because they won't have enough dots. And so then they take a few minutes and they put the dots on. And so far I haven't really told them what we're going to do with that. They're just making patterns in the boxes. So after they have their patterns in the boxes, then I go and I tell them, boys and girls, these are beat boxes. Every box represents a beat. And so if you have 1 dot in your box, you have 1 sound on the beat. What note do we know makes 1 sound to the beat? Oh, quarter note, that's a ta. Right. So when we see 1 sound in the beat, that's going to be ta or quarter note. What happens if we see 2 sounds to the beat? What notes do we know fit 2 to the beat? And oh, those would be 8th notes. Those are TTs. And so then we would count TTs when we got there. And then, holy smokes, boys, some of you have 4 dots in 1 box. What notes do we know that we can fit 4 of into one of these places? And usually there's a little bit of discussion, but we've prepped 16th notes really well, so they get that. And then they'll say, oh, those are Coca-Colas. Okay, I know that's weird, but I don't say tiki tiki or tiri tiri because I'm weird. I say Coca-Cola. And I never knew that other teachers said other weird words until today when I had a student from Oh, I don't remember where she's from. Okay, I'll ask her next week. And I was saying, if you're a student from another school and we're reviewing 16th notes, I know your teacher may have called them Tiri Tiri or Tiki Tiki, but I call them Coca-Cola. And this girl raised her hand and she goes, my teacher called them Caterpillar. I'm like, oh my gosh, I so love you, whoever you are that teaches Caterpillar. I love that. So she switched to Coca-Cola without too many problems. So then they have a sheet that looks like this. And so pretend those notes aren't there yet. So then we would go through and we would clap. Coca-Cola, T, T, Coca-Cola, ta, ta, Coca-Cola, ta, T, T. Ooh, watermelon. That's a good one too. So then after we've done that, I'm like, oh, boys and girls, that was just fabulous. Let's all at the same time, let's clap all of our rhythms at the same time. So then we would do all the whole class, even though we're playing or clapping different things at the same time. We're all on that same strong beat there. And we clap through them. And I'm like, wow, that is so great. Would you trade with the person next to you and clap their pattern? And so then we clap through it a little bit more. We switch our papers back. And then I'll say, all right, so now let's take this from just dots. Let's take this down to notation. And so they sit down and then they'll write down whatever notes that represented. I've already prepped that for them. They've already practiced. We've already done this as a group. So this is easy, cheesy, peasy, squeezy, whatever. Super, super easy. So the next time that they come, we go back to this sheet, either one that I've taken a look at their sheet and given it back to them, or we start with a whole new sheet because they really, really like this activity. So I can get away with that. Do I use the stickers again? Well, before I taught 180 fourth graders or so, I did. I just bought more stickers because there's a bajillion of them and they're not very expensive. But then I decided I could probably do this in a less expensive way, and I used dabbers. So these are easy. The only problem with dabbers is that they're really, really unforgiving. If you make a mistake and you dab a 5th dot, or you dab 3 and you only wanted 2, you can't just peel them off like a sticker. You've kind of committed to whatever you're going to do. But this does allow them to use more dots than what they have on their sticker sheet. So this is also an option for doing that. So they come back in the second day and we may start from the beginning, or we may go back to their same sheet, and I'll say, that was a great composition, but now I want you to give it a really dotty name for your composition. And oh my gosh, this is such a fun part of the lesson. So they'll come up with all sorts of crazy ones, like We Dot the Beat, or Old Dot Road, I Kissed a Dot and I Liked It, I Dot You Babe, do do do, I dot you, babe. Okay, that was mine. They totally don't know. Share. Old Time Dot and Roll. There's just a whole bunch of funny dot names. If you have some funny dot names, throw them into the comments there, that they can use. So then either, within, I do workstations about every 4th or 5th class period, unless we're prepping for a concert. And so sometime in that next cycle, I would want to go and I would want to put this same activity, but in a workstation. So at the workstation, then let me show you what the dabbers look like. So this is, if I dab them, they look like that. So I could put this in a workstation, and at the workstation, this may be something that the whole group is going to work on together. So all 3 or 4 people in the group are going to contribute to how many dots are in each space. They're going to help each other get the notation that's correct in there. And then they're going to use this as a composition themselves in the group. So they might, I might set non-pitch percussion instruments in that section. I may just put out my can of chopsticks if it's like a really loud rotation that week and I need something quieter. They can just click their chopsticks together like rhythm sticks. It's really fun to have them create their composition, and then as they write in the notation for the composition that they've made with dots, to use boom whacker colors to write the notation in. So like red here and green here and purplish here and so on. And then perform their composition using boom whackers. So we're adding pitch as another element to the composition, and they can easily do this in the 7 to 8 minutes that they have at a workstation, because this comes together super fast. And because they really want to get to playing the boom whackers, they just go right through. Someone will say, okay, this one's here, what color do we want? Sometimes I'll just leave markers in the workstation that I want them to use and just put boom whackers that match those marker colors. And as I'm introducing the workstation to the group, I'll say, so these are your color choices. Of course, try them out and see what sounds best. Don't forget that sometimes repeating colors is good. Sometimes making all of the sounds in one block the same color is much easier to play. Just kind of giving them a few tips as they work together as a group. And so what they're doing at this workstation is they're, of course, reviewing 16th notes and other note values, but they're also getting a chance to compose. And that's one of the things that I find I don't get my kids to do enough, is to improvise and compose. And so to give them this as a group, to let them do that, I think is pretty awesome. You could also do like those desk bells. You could put those in and they could color code. You could do lots of different things to add some variety to that. I am often looking for workstations where kids can play instruments. And this one, if it's maybe one of only 2 kind of loud stations, then I would give them like tambourines and claves and stuff like that to use. But if not, then I would definitely use chopsticks. Or if you take pool noodles and you cut them into thirds or you cut them into halves, they work really good as rhythm sticks. They're fun to play and they're not very loud. Tammy, you can get boxes of chopsticks like at a Walmart, Schnucks, and places like that. They're a little pricey. When I when I had to buy my last ones, I think that I went online and either got them at Amazon or, oh gosh, I don't remember. If I remember, I'll put that in the links as well. I also eat an insane amount of Chinese food, so I just make sure that, I grab 4 or 5 each time, and what we don't use, I throw in a drawer, and then occasionally I'll open that drawer and poof, the chopsticks will fall out, and I'll be like, oh my gosh, look at all these classroom manipulatives I have to take into my classroom right now. So that's one way too. You could also put out, like a little blurb in the newsletter if anybody has any chopsticks to bring in. And I'm talking about just the inexpensive wooden kind, not like the fancy kind that are made to be washed and reused, but just the other kind, because they're much, much easier. And then I collect them and keep them forever. The only other problem with chopsticks is that they fit really nicely in ears and noses, which is, yummy, but they're inexpensive enough that I just throw those away whenever I see that happening, because some kids they just can't help but chew on it or fiddle on it or dig for it or whatever. So oh yeah, and I have used the ones that I have now. I have had, gosh, I bet I've had them for about 10 years too. And I don't use them all the time because I have other stuff now, but man, they are great. I also mean to use my pool noodle sticks a little bit more often, and activities like this, they're so much fun to use, but activities like this, it really brings the noise level down as far as, what we would be doing with all of the other workstations. So I hope that you enjoyed me sharing one of the lessons that I teach to a whole group, and then how I would take what we've learned there and put it in a workstation. I also sometimes I haven't done this consistently, but I'll set this book in the station too to help remind them of the day that we went through it and we picked out patterns, and they might use them for that same kind of activity. I did have a gifted student one time that figured out that they could cut some of the circles in half, and they could make some 8th and 16th combinations. And I don't even remember exactly how they did it, but they were being very clever in how they placed everything. And so you never know, when you give them the opportunity to compose and to be creative, you never know what they're going to come up with. So I hope that you enjoyed this evening's lesson. If you like this format of me sharing a lesson of like a whole group activity and how I pour that into Workstations, be sure to let me know, because that's something that I can definitely do as we continue on with Workstation Wednesdays for the rest of the year. I hope that you guys have a fabulous Labor Day weekend, and I will see you next Wednesday. See ya!